Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Worst, a podcast where we watch movie trilogies and series and decide which movie lets matches burn down to its fingertips just to feel something. I'm your host, Griner, and joining me...
I'm Conan, and as the father of a daughter and the son of a mother, I can say these movies are cool.
All right, let's do this one last time. I'm Luke Morgan, and I need to review my personal biases.
Of course, we're jumping the gun and doing Spiderverse. We're reviewing Into the Spiderverse and Across the Spiderverse Part 1, and then I guess we'll cover Part 2 when it comes out in March. Not that far away.
Well, it's not Part 2, it's Beyond the Spiderverse now.
Oh, is it? I thought it was Part 2. Apologies.
Changed the name.
It was originally, but yeah.
There you go. Boys, I really love these movies, but when I first saw the first one, I came out of it and I want to recommend this to people, but I'm recommending an animated Spider-Man film. Did you guys have any qualms about this being an animated Spider-Man film? It just felt weird to recommend that to people. Here's an animated superhero movie that's pretty good.
But trust me, it's good. It's fun.
No, but it's good. It's not just an animated superhero. It's good. I don't know. I had trouble with that.
I was kind of late to the Spider-Verse party. So it came out 2018, I think it was. And everyone was raving about it. Everybody was loving it. And I didn't watch it until probably 2 years after that. Finally, where I was just like, oh, it's on Netflix. And I was like, it's time to watch that. And I think what had prevented me from watching it at that time was that it's an animated Spider-Man film. I was just like, as much as I'm a Spider-Man fan, and so is my son, I just was like, no, I don't see how this could be that good or up my alley or anything like that. And boy, was I wrong, because I remember watching this and being like, wow, I've been missing out. This film is awesome. It's funny. The style is just so cool. I really, really enjoy the style. I got so into this film. So did my son. This basically grew my son's love of Spider-Man way more than ever it was before. And then, yeah, haven't stopped recommending it to people since I've watched it, but yeah.
Yeah, the animated part, it didn't deter me, because I've always been a defender of animation. Ever since the Mortal Kombat animated film Scorpion's Revenge came out, I was like, animated films are the best way to do these, because that was much better than the actual Mortal Kombat film we got around the same time. And so this was never an issue with me, but I had that inkling in the back of my throat where I was like, people are going to laugh at me if I say an animated Spider-Man film's the second best Spider-Man film ever made. So that's just because people are ignorant, people don't take animation that isn't Pixar seriously, and that's a real shame. But to that point, I remember seeing this at the cinema with a group of friends, because this movie was really small. It didn't make big waves. It wasn't, people weren't anticipating it. It wasn't a big, excitable thing. And yeah. I just remember being like, oh, there's a new Spider-Man film. Its Metascore was crazy high, and all the reviews I was reading said it was amazing. So I asked some friends, should we see this? And they're like, yeah, that sounds cool. And we came out of it and we're like, holy hell, that was the best thing we've seen in years.
You went to the cinema to watch it?
I did. I went to a large dark room.
Yeah,
just me and my boys, just hitting the beers, harassing the elderly.
Yeah, I remember Reddit had a bit of an erection for this movie before it came out, so I was aware of it, and then I happened to be on holidays when it came out, so me and my wife were killing some time one day, and we went and saw it. Best decision ever, though, because holy hell, good movie. I still I recommended it to my brother-in-law, who likes animation and likes superhero movies, and even he was like, really? An animated Spider-Man movie?
Why is that?
I don't know. I think people... I don't know. It's, if you told me, oh, you should go see that animated Batman movie, it's really good, I'd be like, mm-hmm.
So if I told you to see Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge,
I'd be like, mm-hmm, sure.
Yeah,
I'll go check that out.
That's the problem.
I don't. Here's the thing. I remember there was a big buzz around it when the trailer first came out, and people were showing it. And I was like, oh, it's got this really unique art style and the way it moves and everything. And I remember seeing a bit of the trailer and being turned off by the art style from the trailer, from what I saw, and just being like, I don't like that style. I don't like the way the characters are moving and all that sort of stuff. And it wasn't until I watched the movie where I was like, oh wow, this is a really cool art style, and I really like this. But yeah,
let's circle back around to the art style. Let's start off with some stats, hey?
Yes, stats.
Into the Spider-Verse had a budget of 90 million, made 384 million. Across the Spider-Verse, budget of $150 million, animation is bloody expensive, has so far in one weekend made $208 million. The biggest opening weekend of the year of any movie, I think, is what I read. Beat Guardians of the Galaxy in its opening weekend. Yes.
Beat Mario?
Yes. It's
Mario's had a long life. It didn't have that spike life. Yeah. I'm trying to find the amount of
Guardians. That's impressive, man. Well done, Spider-Verse.
It had a really big opening weekend.
Like, our experiences speak to those numbers, right? The first movie did not do amazing business. It is not like, it made money, but it's not. It wasn't like, wow, we need to franchise the crap out of this, and it wasn't like this phenomenon. But it had such a strong following.
Yeah,
and to see the opening weekend of this movie, which I think is definitely helped by them pushing it back. Like, originally it was slated for, I think, 2020 or 2021, but there was some sort of pandemic, I think, that stopped some stuff. And so it's ended up being pushed back. And I think that's helped. Like, that's just given everyone blue balls. I know it's given those to me. And so now finally getting it, it's like everyone turned out and is excited. But look at these numbers. There was over the largest crew of any animated movie ever. So this is Across the Spider-Verse. Around 1,000 people working on it. Like, some absurd amount of animators. Like,
just to talk about Across the Spider-Verse for a second, like, we'll get into it, but just like, I can't remember really a film where I've just been sitting there during and been like, this is impressive. Like, just visually, and like, this is so extra. Like, there's so much stuff going on and so many cool things where I'm like, this would be, I can't even fathom like what goes into making a film like this, but it's impressive and like mind-blowing. But
every one of those 1,000 animators was given one Spider-Man each to work on.
Yeah.
But they all cared. They all cared, and they all did their best, and it's amazing.
There's some pretty good stories about these movies, and like especially the first one. Anyway, we'll get into it. Critical reception. I went all out, and I got Metacritic, IMDb, and Rotten Tomatoes. So into the Spider-Verse, 87 on Metacritic, 8.4 on IMDb, and 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yep. Across the Spider-Verse, 87 on Metacritic, exact same score, 9.1 on IMDb, so significantly higher than Into the Spider-Verse.
Recency bias, but
bias, you're right. And Rotten Tomatoes, 95%, so slightly lower than Into the Spider-Verse.
Was 97 was the first one?
Yeah.
The 2%. Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm really...
Good scores.
Good scores.
Yeah, good. Like, they're so... I know, I was trying to rate... When I rated these on Letterboxd, I was like... I give them both 4.5. And I'm like, is one better than the worst? How do I even really define this? Should one be a 5-star film? I don't know. And I had a bit of an existential crisis. But
how do you decide what gets 5 out of 5? Because I would query, like, where would you deduct marks, particularly in my opinion for the first movie? But
I don't like. This is a good question. This is something that keeps me up at night. I go back and forth. I go by the Roger Ebert playbook, and just it's a feeling. It's something that I can. It's a 5-star film where you can feel it in your bones. Someone says, "What's a 5-star?" and you know what a 5-star movie is. Casino Royale, I was thinking about the other day, is a 5-star movie, which has earned that place because I'm like, that movie is just fantastic, amazing. And Interstellar is maybe 3. It's probably 3. And in time, these might be, especially once the third one comes out. I really would be curious to reevaluate it. And that's the thing, like, I don't know. Rating films is kind of arbitrary at the end of the day because it's really all just, it's like, what do you base it on? Is it purely technical achievement? Is it purely how you felt? Is it purely cultural significance? Blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, for some reason, I'm just like, Into the Spider-Verse, for some reason, I wouldn't put it as a 5-star movie. But there's nothing I could say that is like, there's nothing I could detract from it. So, I mean,
just something you spoke about earlier, and I'd come into this podcast wanting to ask this question. So I just feel like now's a good time. Are these the best Spider-Man movies? And Conan, you said the first one is maybe the second best Spider-Man movie.
I knew this.
What is a better Spider-Man movie than
He's going to say Spider-Man 2.
It's going to be Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2.
Nostalgia bias.
Spider-Man 2 is just the shit.
Yeah, it's good, but
there's a 4.9 film. This would be. Let's say this is a 4. These are 4.7s and 8s. Let's do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah, but every other movie in that trilogy is a 4.1 at best.
I mean, yeah. Spider-Man 3 is not even close, but anyway.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
All
Like,
right.
would you guys rate these 5-star films? I'm just
I definitely would for Into the Spider-Verse, 100%.
okay.
I would for both of these films.
I think I need to sit on
I
Across the Spider-Verse a little longer.
I want to go see it again. It's like I
So do
haven't
I.
stopped thinking of Across the Spider-Verse since I watched it. I've been listening to the score, been listening to the soundtrack, and I'm just like, I really want to go watch it again. And like, just now that I've seen it, I know what's happening, and just like watch it again and appreciate it. Because I've watched Into the Spider-Verse a bunch of times. So if you'd ask me now, I'd probably I like Into the Spider-Verse a lot. Like it's really good, but these films, I think it just. I love these films, and I had this realization in the past week where I was like, I could possibly like. I think the argument's there that these are like my favorite animated films of all time. Like, I'm a big Pixar fan. I've always loved Pixar films. Big proponent of them. But these films are just, I don't know. I love them. There's just so much to them, and like the humor, everything, just outside of animation, like the humor, the wit, the writing, the characters. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, like this is the thing. If you're trying to fault these movies, you pretty much can't. And if that's what takes a fault, like if that's how you define a perfect movie, is like, oh, there's nothing that you could say is, could be better done. Then sure, that's 5 stars. I don't know. I don't think that's how I would assess it. But to your point, like artistically, yeah, these are probably the best animated films ever made. They're definitely pushing the envelope in every way. They are definitely the most like daring. Sounds really, really stupid, but they're like the bravest animated films because they take so many risks and they, like to your point, Griner, I think they know full well that that animation's in kind of a sort of an awkward spot in terms of it's reserved generally for kids and sometimes for teenagers, but even then like CGI is for teenagers now. And for adults, it's not a thing. And these movies know that they're going to alienate people, but they don't look at any of the easy ways out. They don't look at any way to they don't compromise. They don't sacrifice anything to say, well, let's just lean into the markets we have. They go, no, we can tell the best Spider-Man stories with animation, so we're going to do it. And they do things that I've never seen in other animated films. And like again, in that sense, these are the best animated films. Does that mean they're the best animated films? I don't know, but
I feel like at the moment we're seeing a lull in Pixar. Like I feel like Pixar's not smacking out like a big hit every year like they were. And the last few have come and gone, and I don't even know what they're called. Where before I used to be really excited about Pixar releases and stuff.
You didn't get out there and watch Turning Red on the opening night?
That was meant to be really
Turning
good.
Red's a great film.
I think you would say that about just about any Pixar movie if you went and watched it. It's like, oh, that's actually a pretty good film.
Not The Good Dinosaur. No, not The Good Dinosaur.
I knew you were going to say
or Buzz Lightyear, but
that's what they did. Lightyear. What a balls on.
Yeah.
Disney Animation's in a weird spot because since all those buyouts, like because they're still Disney owns Pixar and their own animation, and their own animation studio is just doing Pixar stuff. They're not doing animated anymore. Yep. So they have like two studios that are basically the same, but they're technically different. It's all weird.
They compete in a weird way.
Yeah.
I think the problem with Disney at the moment is they've just really saturated the market on all their brands. Marvel, Star Wars, like you name it. Like even live action remakes of their cartoons. Everybody is pretty over it.
Yeah. And
they're afraid to innovate. I don't know. They're in a bit of a weird spot.
And like with all the streaming stuff going on, they are in everything's just in a weird lull. And
I mean that's the thing. This is Sony, like in collaboration with Marvel, obviously, and like, but it's the Sony probably making these films. It's not Disney.
And that's and that's kind of I think that adds to why these films are so almost profound, right? That it's almost pure risk. Every choice, even though Spider-Man is the safest superhero you can bet on, so I don't want to be like, they didn't pick.
I can't believe they made a Spider-Man movie.
I know, like I don't want to say it's a risk in that. But it's risky in that it is doing stuff with Spider-Man we've never seen before. It is not CG. It's not leaning into CGI. It is not leaning into the MCU formula. It's kind of going against the grain in every way with what they know. Whereas all other animation and all other, it's really like media companies aren't doing that. And this has been the case for 20 years. No one wants to take risks, but more so now, I think, especially since the streaming wars are kind of reaching critical mass. And then you get this movie come out, and it's like, holy crap, these are the risks that everyone's been crying out for. And look how they're paying off. Like, this is, maybe cinema's not dead. Maybe it's just animated.
What a claim.
By Sony.
All right, let's get into the first film. Teen Miles Morales becomes the Spider-Man of his universe and must join with 5 spider-powered individuals from other dimensions to stop a threat for all realities.
What a film.
Yeah. Like, to your point, Conan, you talk about, you know, you can't fault this film, but it's about the feeling. For me, the reason this is a 5-star movie is because I did not want to look at my phone at all during this movie, which is very, very rare these days. Yeah, and I was just grinning like an idiot the whole time. Like, just had this stupid smile on my face, just drinking in this animation, enjoying the banter between these characters. Yeah. I don't know. Kingpin, every time he's on the screen, I'm just like, that dude is an absolute unit. Like, there's just
a head in a square of black. It's just this.
So many good characters, so many good moments.
Can we come back to the physics of how he has a child? He's
a rich man. Maybe there's some medical science helping him out there. I don't know.
He put a square peg into.
Yeah, look, no, you're right. Again, I really don't even know if my assessment is fair, and I'm sure it will change in times. And I was going to re-rate it to 5, but it's just something there. I don't know. This movie's become more of a background film to me in terms of the banter is kind of the most standout part in a lot of ways. And I feel silly being like, I put on this animated film that is I enjoy almost more for just like having it on in the background and looking bits and pieces and go, oh, this is a cool scene. This is a great part. But to your point, yeah, like when I do watch it, I think I've seen it like 4 times now, and the 3 rewatches have all sort of been, I've been doing other things, but that's not because I'm bored of the film. That's because it's such a nice, comforting film that I can do that. But I remember when I saw it in the movies, I was like, it's 2 hours and 15, 20. No, it's 2 hours, but it's just like, it flew by, and it
flies by. Yeah.
Like the pacing and just the energy, like these movies are kinetic. And I just remember being like, I'm pumped up. I want to get out here and jump off a building and like just kick some shit. Yeah. Like they're so energized, and it's astounding how they do it. Like they just put so much life into every single frame.
Like these films just have style all over them. Just like there's so much stuff that you just appreciate visually, but just like, I don't know, music, I feel like, especially the first one, like the music's like, it's got a banging soundtrack. And the emotional stuff that it hits, like I love the "What's Up Danger" scene, and even now, like on the most recent rewatch, as soon as it starts up and like Miles is like going back and he's getting that confidence, and it's just like I get goosebumps. I'm like, this is so cool that he's got the hoodie over the suit. It's just like, it's such a cool style. I love everything about the first film.
That view of like the city upside down and him throw away up, like everything.
Yeah.
Everything makes sense now in his world. That shot is amazing.
The leap of faith scene is like an all-time. It's like an all-timer. Like that'll go up there with the ending of Gone with the Wind.
And I was reading that was like in the first draft of the script, like as a direction. It's like it's been there since the start. They always wanted to do it. I don't know. I feel like the people who made this movie really knew what they wanted to do, and they got the team behind them to do it. And it feels like everybody's having fun. Like apparently, if you pause any of the scenes with a train, Stan Lee is in every window because the animators just wanted to draw Stan Lee for some reason. Like there's just stupid little things like that, and I feel like everybody's having a good time. Everybody's putting heart and soul into this movie because it just oozes it.
They care about this, and they had a vision from the start. And like touching on that, there's been this recent thread, and I'm not sure if you guys might not have seen it, but like people going back and watching the first one after watching the second one, the amount of stuff they've picked up where it's like, okay, they obviously had this in mind throughout, like they had this trilogy planned, or they had this whole story planned out, seeing the signs in there. So just a couple of things that people have pointed out, like when Peter and Miles first interact, like Peter B. Parker, Miles ties him to the boxing bag, which is obviously what Miles does in the other universe. When Miles and the first Peter Parker like spider sense each other, Miles' colors are purple and green, and then they change to blue and red, like because he's changing from the Prowler sort of thing to Spider-Man colors after interacting with Peter and changing basically the fate of that world. And when he first falls off a building, he knocks a couple numbers off, which are 42, and that's the universe the spider's from.
But, so 42 is in the opening credits of the first one as well. The opening animation splash. I thought that was a reference to Is it Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where it's like the meaning of all life is 42?
Yep.
Probably
So
some
that's
really
so
two
my theory.
things.
So I wonder if they did, because I've heard this as well, like that every and the spider coming from the other universe, people being like,
It's
oh, they
glitching
planned.
out.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know if they did. I'm skeptical that they really had all of it planned 100%.
Really?
I think it's an easy way to lean into it though. You have a spider, it's like it's glitchy, and they know this movie's in multiverses.
Yeah.
It's a multi-dimensional. I don't think that doesn't necessarily mean they plan to have an alternate dimension that's going to involve old Nega Miles go turn into the Prowler. It just means they were like, like it's good writing. They leave themselves windows to go through.
Yeah, even like the Spot being the guy who gets hit by a bagel in the first movie.
Yeah,
Everybody remembers the bagel guy because it says bagel on the screen. Like it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I don't think they were like,
let's
he's
just
going
make
to
that
come
guy
back.
the villain. Like we
He's going to
don't
come
know
back and be
exactly.
Which I shit you not, and I wish there was a way to do this. As I was sitting in the cinema watching Across the Spider-Verse, as soon as the Spot guy said he worked at that company, I was sitting there, I was like, oh man, it'd be so funny if it was the bagel guy who got hit. And then when they got revealed, I was like, oh my god, I wish I said that to somebody. I was like, I can't believe it. That's great.
Yeah,
But yeah,
like whether they did it or not, like these movies feel so intentional. I'm like, that almost feels like a trite concept now as well. But we think about like all the MCU, all the superhero stuff we've had for the past 20 years, where, with the exception of a small handful, none of it's intentional. It has all been like, it's intentional as a business decision. It has very quickly become the product that gets churned out because it makes money, it sells people on the idea of connectivity, and these are the heroes that you love and spend time with, so let's have references here or there. Whereas these movies feel like there is no motive, there is no financial goal. This is just like Philip Miller and Lord, some of the best creators in the business, are just really funny people and are clearly huge nerds because they love shit like Lego. They love 21 Jump Street. They wrote Clone High, which is one of the greatest animated shows ever written. Like, they're just very funny, very clever people. And they're clearly just huge comic book nerds, and everybody connected in this would have come into this movie and been like, we just love comics and we want to translate it. And I think there's only so much you can translate from comics to live action. And that's kind of the constant problem with a lot of superhero films, is like, how do you really get the colors, the liveliness, like the whole CG. You need CG to make all the fancy stuff. You don't need that in animation. You can just animate stuff and it can make it stylish and unique and engaging and authentic. And like, everyone here is doing that for this reason. No one's in this movie being like, this is going to be my next big career move. They're like, no, we just love Spider-Man. And that's so nice to have, because the people who are watching this movie are like, that's what we want. We just want nice Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah, the thing that struck me watching this again is how much they know the audience knows who Spider-Man is. Like, if this was going to be a big franchise, we'd have, is it Peter A. Parker? I don't know who Peter Parker is in that universe, but let's have a movie about him so it really hits when he dies in the second movie or something like that. There's so many other ways this could have gone that is so much dirtier and gross. I love how we get Scorpion in this movie for like 10 minutes, if that, and he dies off screen basically, or whatever happens to him. Like, they just throw us very big Spider-Man villains.
Green Goblin.
Green Goblin. They just use them for a few minutes for a scene or whatever, and then they move on. Like, there's no like, oh no, we can't show Green Goblin yet because he's going to be the villain in the fourth movie.
Yeah, we'll franchise that,
and franchise it out. Like, it feels like they're just like, this is a good spot to have a team of villains. Who can we put in here? Let's go for it. It's a breath of fresh air, I feel like, because even though this is an origin story, it doesn't feel like the dirty origin story we're so used to with Spider-Man. Like, it just and they get the memes too. Like, we get Spider-Man dancing from Spider-Man 3 at the start
how good.
And he's like, that wasn't my best moment, or something like that. Like, it's really funny. Everybody watching it knows what's going on. They're just happy to play with this property, and it's really good. It's great. I feel like they trust me as someone watching this to understand what's going on. They're not spoon feeding me. They're not worried about the ramifications for the fourth movie or the fifth movie down the line.
Because it's like, it's a Spider-Man film for Spider-Man fans. It's not like Spider-Man for everybody, to try to make sure everyone can see. It's like, enough people know, enough people know who he is. Enough people are fans now. They're like, here is your synthesized Spider-Man injection straight to your veins. Yeah. And it's just like, it's like liquid crack. It's great.
And that's the thing, like, I don't know, like, I feel like even though, like, they kill Spider-Man in the first 10 minutes, like, of this film, we have Spider-Man killed by getting punched by Kingpin, like just Kingpin slamming his fist down and killing Spider-Man, and it feels, I don't know, it feels big. It feels like, oh shit, like he's dead. Like Peter Parker's dead in this world. Like, and Kingpin just killed him, and it feels brutal, even though it's only 10 minutes in. It has like a sadness to it and a weight to it. I feel like it's just
because we know who Peter Parker is. We're not stupid. We've seen Spider-Man before. We know he's like, they don't need to give us a whole movie about him for us to care about him.
Exactly.
It's like, to that point, they use this the like the multiverse stuff so well. Like, that's become a real kind of hacky part of the MCU now. The multiverse is their silver bullet out of this, and if they're kind of like ace up their sleeve where they can just go, well, we can introduce characters and then kill them off if we need to, depending on what fan reception is. And you can tell they could have done that in this. They could have just been like, that was a Peter no one cares about, here's a real story. But they let someone die, but they don't. Then they introduce new ones, but they're like, they don't just replace him. But at the same time, they also don't just let the whole thing be, there's no Spider-Man. It's a really good way to like utilize the multiverse and still feel that absence. Like, you feel like there actually is a stake and an impact here, but we don't have to all deal with there's no Spider-Man. It's like, no, we still got Spider-Man. It's cool. It's just this one's a bit of a bum, and and like, that's really good.
Then you're divorced from Mary Jane. And
like that's cool. Okay, like that's a good way to use it, rather than just, we need to get Spider-Man back, which would be the plot of any other version of this movie.
Yep.
And like that's good. It's using all the different, like, the infinite dimensions cleverly, rather than just going, okay, well, how do we do the same story that every other multiverse film has done, which is, we need to go to another dimension and save the person who died. It's nice to just not have it be that. Like,
and on our way there, we're going to go through the dimension where we're made of paint, and the one where we're made of shapes, and the one where, like, they don't do any of those cliches. I love it.
Nothing dumb.
Yeah,
it's good.
It's really good. Just the animation, like, I suppose we need to talk about just the mechanics of like. So what you mentioned before, Luke, I've never seen anything like that, like this.
No.
Like,
it feels like you could honestly pause this movie at any point, and that's a frame from a comic book. Like,
put that on your wall.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yep. And like, they use that to make everyone has a style in it. Everyone sort of is animated differently. Every setting and scene feels more unique. Like, it really helps to sort of build character, right? When everyone's artistically done differently. Obviously, you've got to, like, it's pretty obvious when you see Noir, he's completely black and white. So, okay, he stands out. It's meant to. But then that really, I don't know, something about that just works. Like, not only is it super unique to look at, just seeing these, like, these animations that shouldn't fit on the standard comic book background of Morales' universe, but then it expands on that character, and that's sort of always having that awareness of seeing this person or seeing this Spider-Man look differently, seeing Penny Parker like in manga style. Okay, this brings something to her character that we then don't have to see, we don't have to listen to, we don't have to have long dialogue to explain stuff. It's like, no, we know stuff about them because we know what noir is, so we can read. We bring our prior knowledge to that. We know what manga is, so we can bring stuff to that. Like,
you know what Looney Tunes is?
Yeah,
like Peter Parker's. Like,
we know what an anvil coming out of nowhere is because we've seen.
We watched the Simpsons movie. He's like, know who Spider-Pig is.
And like, that makes such a difference that I don't think, like, I don't know if you realize as you're watching it, but it enhances the experience because you know it all. That brings connotations, which enhances it how you're watching it. I was thinking about it. Imagine if this was all done in one animation style, and how much flatter that would be. Like, imagine if Noir came over and he was like, he took on the animation style of Miles' universe. And so they're all kind of the same looking characters, but a bit different. I'm like, it would just be really kind of bland, and they would feel samey, and I think it would be a really less impactful way to doing it.
Yeah.
But to their point, they spend more money, they hire more animators, and they're like, well, it's got to be hard to do. It is going to be really hard to animate 15 different styles in one frame and have that going for a huge fight scene. But they're like, that's what we're going to do. Yep. It's like, kudos.
Every facet of this movie's thought about like that too. I feel like even the frame rate, like Miles is animated at a different frame rate to everything else for half the movie. Like, they just think about every little thing. I was reading the soundtrack was created, and then they got a DJ to come in, like the best DJ who won some competition, to come in and scratch it in So it feels really kinetic and fits in with all the action scenes and stuff. Like, it's just every little facet of this movie feels like it's been thought about and handcrafted in a lot of ways, and it shows with the end product, man. It's so good.
And that helps with the pacing too. Like, that's the way it just flows. Like Conan said earlier, you just watch it and you're on that ride now, and it just has its like flows and everything, and it just is constant.
Even when it slows down, it's like it doesn't feel like boring slow. It feels really natural, and that's done partially like the music slows, so you know to slow. The animation sort of settles down, so you know, and it feels like a rewarding break when you're like, I've just gone through this crazy kinetic fight scene. Now I can have some
prowler in the subway where it's just like
exactly. It's like it's in your face and like it's in your blood almost. It's so intense. Yeah, and then you can breathe and just enjoy it and enjoy the scenery, and it's like that's it. It's so nice.
It works like at the start comically too. Like there's this kind of kinetic scene of him trying to get to school, and then his dad picks him up, and it's really quiet and awkward. And then he's like, "Say you love me back." Like it's like, oh, like I can feel this. Where's the energy? It's been sucked out of this scene, but on purpose. Like it works really, really well.
Yeah. And then again, the writing here of like Miller and Lord is so great in those scenes, because if they had anything less, if the jokes didn't land in this movie, if the jokes were flat or bland or trying to be really like safe and sort of, like accessible for everybody, if they fell flat, it would just be such a different movie again.
Yeah.
Like, because those scenes would feel really boring, I think. But whenever it does slow down, it's like the jokes are rapid fire. And so the banter, like every character banters pretty well.
Yeah.
And like, it's just,
and not like in the MCU way. Not in the MCU way.
No, in a good one.
Everyone's got a sarcastic quip. Like, it's just good.
Like, this is how real people do it, right? Actually.
Yeah.
And even if they make jokes that aren't that funny, there's something funny about their delivery, or there's something funny about just their confidence to it.
Yeah.
It all just works so well.
Even just visually, Miles getting the powers for the first time and just dealing with what that's like for your fingers to start sticking to stuff. It's just like, that's funnier and that's the best Spider-Man getting powers yet. Like him just flying out the window.
Spider-Man 1's a pretty good moment.
Yeah, Toby fighting Flash.
Pretty good moment.
Catching that food platter in.
Yeah. Hey, he did that in real. He did that for real.
I know. Only Toby.
I think of the eyes, all the eyes in this movie, it's again like a real strength they do, because everyone's wearing a mask. Everyone's eyes like are ultra expressive. So there's so many scenes where you'll see like someone gets surprised and their eyes just go huge, and it's really funny.
And his eyes are already huge, yeah.
So like, and you get like a little sweat drop comes off, and it's like, okay, I know exactly what's happening. I can read you, and it's how you tell emotion without the face visible, right? Because that's a problem with all superhero films, where most of the heroes now don't wear helmets or masks because they need to show their actors' faces, both to sell it but also to have emotion. Like, there's no coincidence that all the crying scenes in the Spider-Man films have Andrew Garfield or Tom Holland or Tobey Maguire not wearing their masks.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it's like, no, we can do things here. We can have really thin eyes until they're thinking and it's funny. We can go really wide. We can just kind of go confused, and we're not bound by limitate. We're not bound by reality. We can just animate the crap out of this.
Not bound by anatomy. Yeah.
And the scenes are so like, there's so many scenes that I just giggle at when it's like, you see one Spider-Man's eyes do something different to another. It really tickles me for some reason.
Yeah.
All right. Should we move on, I guess?
I feel like I could talk about this film.
Yeah, so do we? Yeah.
I'll just say, as someone who's a Nicolas Cage hater, I quite like him as Spider-Man Noir.
When are we doing the Nicolas Cage trilogy?
Yeah, we need to find one. He needs to make that National Treasure 3. Is the problem.
Treasure 3.
He's good.
How can you hate Nicolas Cage?
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't know. But yeah, Spider-Man Noir is profound.
Yep.
Holy crap, he's good.
Hardcore origin story.
Trying to find quotes for this movie was weird, because so many of them are about the delivery. Like, it's not just clever writing; it's that they're just delivered so well. And like Spider-Man Noir, of course, contributed to that. But
you're right. The Rubik's Cube. I keep thinking of that, and I'm like, you can't quote that because he's just like, what am I looking at?
Yeah,
like, it's hilarious just having him there, the visual gags, and just Nick Cage's delivery, just dry, and it's so good.
Even just like when he gets first introduced and Peter B. Parker's just like, where's the wind coming from? We're in a basement. It's like the wind follows me wherever I go.
All right, Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. Miles Morales catapults across the multiverse, where he encounters a team of spider people charged with protecting its very existence. When the heroes clash on how to handle a new threat, Miles must redefine what it means to be a hero. Did you guys go into this movie knowing that it was a part one of a two-part movie, I guess, is the way I'm going to put it?
This is the thing. I'd obviously forgotten that there was going to be a second part when I suggested that we do this. And then you reminded me before I went into the movie. I was like, oh, okay. Like there was the day I was going into the movie. I was like, oh, that's right. There's another one coming after this. And then when this finished, I was like, oh shit, that's right. It's a part two. And I was like, I'd forgotten by the end of the movie. And I was like, oh man, no, I gotta wait. But yeah, I'd forgotten. And yeah,
Yeah.
This has a chance to be like a all-time trilogy. I feel like if they nail the third one, then this is a damn good quality trilogy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I double remembered. I remembered it midway through. I was like, oh wait, this isn't going to conclude, because I was like, they're taking a long time to do things.
Yes.
Yep. And then it hit me, and then at the end again, is coming up to it. So during the climactic moment, I was like, oh, we've got a third battle. We got a final battle. I was like, no, wait, we don't. This is it again. So I remembered, and then I'd forgotten because I was so into it, and then I remembered.
So entertained.
So they got me twice, the bastards.
So I didn't know. Like, I saw this before we mentioned it in the chat. I knew they had been greenlit for more movies, but I didn't realize it was like a 1-2. These movies are very related, and so
yeah, right.
I don't know. That changed my feelings on the ending of this movie a little bit. I think
it hit you a bit, didn't it? Hurt you?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
This movie does slightly suffer from the whole like the two tower syndrome.
I agree.
Like,
yes,
it's a middle film, and as much as like having a cliffhanger ending is kind of cool because we haven't seen that in a long time, like a true cliffhanger. It's also like cliffhangers are also not done much because they're inherently bad. They're inherently frustrating.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't know. Like, what were your guys' cinemas experiences like with it? Because there was an audible groan when this happened in mine. A lot of people were just like, oh, and it wasn't like we're never coming back, but it was like, God, we don't want to wait. We want this now, which is exactly the reaction you want, but it's still like,
yeah, we're all going to be there day one for number 3. But that's the thing. It definitely does. No matter what, it's going to have that a bit of like a release of the accelerator. Like as that pops up to be continued, and you realize you're not going to get the big conclusion or a satisfying climax or anything like that. Yeah. In my cinema, it was very much like people were like, oh, and I had a bunch of teenagers and stuff who just wanted to shout out stuff throughout the movie, but like literally as it popped up, it was like, what the F? You're kidding me. Like really loud. And everyone was just like giggling and stuff like that. They're like, oh, this is, and people were just complaining outside the cinema. They're like, what the hell? And I felt like being like, actually, it was announced as part 1 and part 2 like 2 years ago. So get yourself in check, please. But yeah, it still sucks.
Like at least they have the attention span to get through a 2-hour 20-minute film. Like, no offense to the TikTok generation, but kids' attention spans these days. Is ruined.
Yeah, back in my day.
Yeah, we never had any attention span problems in our day, did we?
No. I'm perfect. I want to talk about the characters before I forget, because these movies are actually, because we didn't talk about it much in the first one, but the characterization of like the family as well, of Miles' mum and dad. In the first one, there's not a heap there, but there's obviously a pretty strong father-son story.
Yeah.
But like a lot of Across is spent with just his family, and it's really good. Like it really nails all these sort of emotional parts. It also does a really good job. Like, I mean, as a white person, I can't really speak towards the experience of a Latino / African American family, but you kind of feel like the dynamics there. You feel still like those universal themes of identity crisis and not alienation, but sort of being torn between these worlds. They're very like New York is our home because we've made it here. They're just really good characters. They're really compelling. You feel all of Miles' stuff with them, but they also, it's just like they don't spare anything here, I guess is my point. They don't just focus on the animation, which you could easily do.
They
They're
don't
like,
just
no,
focus on the multiverse of Spider-Man. It's like,
yeah,
it still has a really great family down to earth story in there.
and that's still the core of it. Like the core of the movie is that family story, and I think that's why these movies are so good, because like there's that emotional connection, and it's so hard to not be connected with Miles and everything, and all the characters, the internal, like the immediate characters. So outside of all the flashy Spider-Man stuff, there's just this really, really beautiful family story there, and like just as a first-time father, and we're all relatively young fathers, like having that up, just having that, like both having Peter B. Parker's got little Mayday.
Yeah.
And I was just like, God, this speaks to me. Just this movie's made for me. But then also just having Jeff go through the whole, like, my son's growing up and I'm going to, like, we're going to have to let him go. And what does that look like? It's like, that's a thing, right?
Yep.
It's really poignant.
I feel like almost all Spider-Man movies have kind of touched on this in a lot of ways. Like there's always that family drama of like, oh, I don't even know who you are anymore is the, that's the Spider-Man 3 one. But this movie had that moment where he's talking with his mum and she's like, you're going to go out in the world and I want someone to look after my little boy.
Oh man, that's
promise me you will look after my little boy. And I'm like nearly in tears. I'm like, oh man, my kids are only like 2 and 0, but one day they're gonna leave the nest and I don't know how I'm gonna handle it. That speech just had me, man. And it felt like it felt like a really good family moment. I feel like that's not a direction they've gone on before. And they do hate him. And it's the exact situation. She's talking about the exact situation.
God.
And then you was like,
Spider-Man hates him. What the heck, man?
And you're like, that's right. Kids should never leave home. My kids will never go out.
That's right.
This film gets dark with like the Miles stuff, like with Miguel and everything like that in the like him just being like, you are a mistake. Like you're not one of us. You're not supposed to be Spider-Man. You took it away from this world. Like
you're an anomaly. Like
it's brutal, man. It's brutal. And like, yeah, I don't know. It's such a, especially after that speech from like Miles's mum earlier. It's just, I don't know. It's just such a poignant story that this tells of Miles and him being like, I don't know, I'm going to do my own thing. And him just like having that confidence and being like, you know what? No, like I'm going to change. Like you guys, you're meant to be the good guys and you're doing this. It's, it's such a good story.
It's like, it's familiar ground, that whole, like, I was thinking, like, you have it about the Batman v Superman stories, like the grizzled hero that has given up on their moral code. Like that in itself is a trope.
Yeah.
But again, it kind of feels not like they're reinventing the wheel, but it feels fresher here because Miguel is kind of like that same thing. He's still being a hero. He's like he's going around stopping anomalies and saving universes. He's objectively a hero, but he's like, this kid is like, but you're not that. And it's it's because and there is like any good villain. His motive is true. Is like you save your uncle, or you save your dad, or you save the entire world.
Yeah,
and he's talking all these things like that's how this works. That's how these rules and the canon works. It's like that's totally valid. But then there is that classic thing of maybe you can. Nothing's decided. Blah blah blah. It just feels like it feels genuine enough to not feel trite or contrived.
Yeah. I love there's like a layer of meta awareness there too. Like I love that it's called a canon moment, and like when this is your law, look out! Like it has to go the way it goes. And then I love that the bad guy is like literally a plot hole. Like it's all very meta. It's very it's so well thought out. Like all these movies. Can we talk about Gwen and her world and just how like that start and how beautiful and like watercolor and painterly the whole world is.
And colors changing based off emotions and everything. Like that's like honestly possibly my favorite art style thing in this whole film. Like her world and her universe and everything with her dad just really stood out with everything else, and just the way they did colors. Like that's the scene. Like I keep thinking about those scenes with Gwen and her dad and everything like that, where I'm just like, oh wow, like I really like that story and I really like that character. And Grana, you sort of gave a hint at the start, like, oh, well, your daughter will like this movie, and it's very much almost a Gwen Stacy movie as well. Like it is.
It's a really smart way to frame it because that gives us that emotional arc that has a beginning and an end for this movie, because we don't really get that with Miles, right?
No.
But as Gwen's story, we kind of get some closure on what's going to happen with her father and how her story is going to go. So it's a smart way to frame it. I don't know if it totally makes up for this movie really feeling like the middle child, but it's a good idea. And I love the vulture at the start, like this Renaissance style vulture.
Paper.
So freaking good.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah. I mean, this is like all of it's kind of jaw dropping, but I remember watching all the Gwen stuff, and my jaw was just on the floor. I was like, holy crap. As much as you're like, I forget you forget they can do stuff. You can forget they can do that in movies. And it's not subtle either. Like there are scenes where literally like, Captain Stacy's face will turn from one thing to like blue and green, and then it'll be red and yellow in the next scene. Yeah. So it's not like trying to act like it's unseen. It's very like, this is it, but it's just, it works so well. And it's
she hugs her dad and like goes from blue to like warm colors, and it's like,
and exactly, it all changes. And it's like, you literally feel the emotion in the scene. And just watching
works.
It works. I was like, holy crap. Like, yeah, it's just amazing what they achieved with this, like thinking outside the box. But then all of the styles like that, like Spider-Punk, and he's just like,
he's so good too.
There's kinetic like lines everywhere, and you can there's some parts you can barely tell what it is because he's such a punk. He doesn't even fit into the conventions of animation.
Yeah,
like brilliant.
Because like he's constantly changing a bit, like all the styles and stuff like that as well. And someone said online, I saw a tweet earlier that was just like, I get it now. It's because he doesn't believe in consistency. So he's like, he's always got this thing that's just slightly changing.
Like, it's
how good was what do they call him? Is it Kobe or Moby or
Hobie? Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah,
such a good performance.
Yeah,
he's so
good. Did you guys have any audio issues with this? Either understanding him or hearing parts?
Yes,
this movie.
And
Gwen at the start as well. The music was too loud, and I've seen a lot of criticism of this online.
Yeah,
people have been calling it out, and Phil Lord's been talking about it on Twitter with sound adjustments and stuff like that. And
what does he set up? Because I saw an article about this, and it was one of those things that I was like, yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if it was just me or not.
He was saying that it's like a specific sound thing that cinemas are supposed to have it set, and he was saying to print out these things that it's meant to be set to 7 or something like that.
I saw that, yeah.
I don't know. I didn't have too much problem with that. So I'm surprised to hear Griner say that he had it. Like, I didn't have too much of an issue when I went.
It was only Spider-Punk, and there was one moment with Gwen at the start, and I'm like, oh, shit, is this whole movie going to be this hard to understand? Was Christopher Nolan involved in this somewhere? Somebody's got to tell me. You can't sneak that up on me.
He runs a sound editing business now. I'm just ruining films. Yeah, Spider-Punk was a big one. Like, part of it, I think, is meant to be, Kaluuya talks in intentionally like 70s Cockney sort of style. But there were parts where he'd say a whole like 2 or 3 sentences. Like, I have no idea what he said, both because it's kind of quiet and he's really like he's just muffling.
Yeah.
And so I think part of it's intentional, but part of it can't be because it's like there are whole things you just miss. And it's like, at the end, it's not a huge deal because like you always kind of hear the first word and the last word, so you know that he's like, okay, he's saying no to this or he's saying stop. But it was a little bit, there was these moments I was like, is that meant to be that way?
Yeah, true.
But then also I have to mention, like, Miguel, he's kind of got that, like, some of his lines, he almost looks like a Borderlands character. I don't know what that animation is called, but, like, he's got these clearly defined lines.
Almost cel-shaded.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think that might be cel-shaded, but, like, he's got that thing. Spider-Man India.
Another great really cool, performance. Like, Oscar Isaac is really good as Miguel.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
That's another thing. All the big actors they've got in it, right?
Oh, what a cast!
What a cast. And none of them are bad. Like, you can have that danger with hiring famous people to do voices.
Yes.
They don't know what to do. Brad Pitt specifically is really bad at voice work. But all of these people are amazing. Every performer they got is just, like, no one gives a bad performance. And it speaks to that point. Like, I think everyone cared about this movie. No one's just like, sweet, a payday for this. They're like, no, they probably all have a connection. They all really care. But yeah, the cast of this movie is enormous. They're freaking enormous.
We got J.K. Simmons back again. How good is that? I mean, they even reused like the 2002 Spider-Man audio. He's like, I need those pictures of Spider-Man by the morning.
That's right,
in the Lego world.
Yeah. I had kind of avoided all trailers about this movie, so I hadn't seen anything other than, briefly seen like something before a YouTube video or something, and an ad would pop up, and I'd try and not watch it. But I didn't really know anything about this movie coming into it. So when Spot comes up at the start, I had no idea he was going to be the villain of the movie. I was like, okay, this is some obscure Spider-Man character I've never heard of Spot before, and it's going to be like the villain of the week. Like Miles is going to beat him, as you do. All Spider-Man movies have like him beating some villain at the start, like Rhino and or something. It's just like, okay, it'll be done. Spot ends up being a friggin' awesome character, and now I'm like obsessed with this idea of Spot as a character, and just the moment when he like touches that thing and goes from white to black with like the white swirls, and his theme kicks in, it felt really ominous. It felt like, oh shit, like this is
he's
dark.
upgraded.
Like,
he's not just the villain of the week anymore. He's
like he's actually, but his performance as well. Like he was genuinely funny.
Yeah, Jason Schwartzman was so good.
He is really good.
He's the perfect casting for it.
Yeah.
Yes, but like he was a great choice as well. Like not having having Vulture at the beginning, just getting rid of him, being like, yeah, that's done. And then you bring in this like stupid looking he looks like a technical sketch. You can see the lines of it. It's like this is a really weird sort of like rough freehand first draw or something.
Yep.
And it's just like this is dumb.
For robbing a store.
And it's just like I don't. It's just a really cool choice. It's like it's clever. Like I said, Griner, it's really meta. He's literally a plot hole, and it's just you can't stop that no matter what they do. It's like what are we? It's just really clever, and like that becomes the villain. It's kind of absurd, but it's the perfect choice for a movie that's so big and absurd as well.
Yeah.
We get a few live action moments in this movie. First one I want to talk about is appearing to the Asian lady in the store. Spot appears to her. Now, apparently that's a character from the Venom movies. I didn't know who she was. I knew nothing about her. That didn't hit for me at all.
No, neither. A friend of mine had to tell me that.
That didn't hit for me. I haven't watched the Venom movies.
No,
so
neither have I.
That I kept I was like, wait a minute, is Tom Holland going to pop up, or is like Andrew Garfield going to pop up, save this store or something like that for a second? And then when it didn't happen, I was like, okay, I don't get that reference. But
so the context obviously is that she sees Venom a lot, so she's like used to weird stuff.
Yes, that's the joke. But if you haven't seen Venom, there's not much there. We get Donald Glover as a captured Prowler.
But this is the big question. So
I like this.
So this is is this confirming he's Prowler and this is part of MCU canon? Because we don't see Tom Holland. We don't see any reference to
He's very conspicuous by his absence, actually, I think. But
so what did you guys make of this? Is it literally just?
I thought this was a fun play because I don't see them going back to Prowler in the MCU, and I think I just saw it as like a fun play of like, everyone was saying,
yes,
in that first one he talked about having a nephew, blah blah blah, and it's like he played that character, but I don't think they're ever going to go back to him as Prowler. And it's like, in this alternate universe he was that. Maybe they will, but like as just a fun Easter egg of like almost Doctor Strange having Mr. Fantastic be John Krasinski. Like it's like we don't know if he'll be that moving forward, but
there was that big campaign like in way back when of make Donald Glover Miles Morales. Like that was a big campaign when Community was on. People were trying to get him into the Spider-Man role, but it never happened. I think it's just a play on that.
Yep.
I'd be surprised if we see him again in the MCU.
I was fine with that.
Yeah, I enjoyed his moment though. Like I thought it was a good little cameo.
Yeah.
And then we get replays of both Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire's as little vignettes, I guess, to show the lore, I suppose, is what they're looking at, isn't it?
I didn't mind them.
Yeah.
But I think at that point, it felt kind of forced of like, okay, now let's watch this scene from Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Instead of, I would have been fine with it just being in the background and like, there's a bunch of 10 screens where we just have all these different versions of stuff we haven't seen before of Uncle Ben's dying or, Captain Stacy's dying. And one of them is the Andrew Garfield one. But just basically sitting there and watching that scene of Andrew Garfield crying, I felt a bit forced to being like, oh, look, now we're watching this. But
I kind of wish they hadn't dabbled into the real life world. Just keep it animated. But
I feel like a one-off is good. Like if it was just Donald Glover there, because that was the one that I kind of chuckled at. It's like, that's a real life anomaly. That's clever.
Yeah.
Having 3 appearances, like if there's one detraction from this movie, or my one little nitpick is that Where the first one, there was no sense of like cuteness or all of its cleverness and all of its comedy and intelligence was really like authentic and natural. This one has a little bit more of like a knowing sort of wink wink at parts. And these are those scenes where like you can tell there's a bit of a hey, we know you guys like this. We know you're into the meta stuff now. We know that No Way Home was such a huge hit. Let's insert both of them to make sure we like you know that we know that you know that we know. Whereas the first one has none of that, and those little bits of them like Easter eggs are fine, but
it has the tiny Easter eggs, but I don't like. They even go back to the pointing Spider-Man meme in this one, which they did in the first one as well, and I really liked it in the first one. And this one, I'm like, we have done this already. Like, I don't know.
But that's the thing. Touching on the MCU stuff, I had that feeling in a couple times in this where I was like, okay, this feels like, oh look, it's multiverse and it's doing that sort of MCU style thing of being like, we know you like this sort of thing. I liked like at the very start with they just meant like Miguel just mentions like, oh, that nerd and Doctor Strange. Like I was like, oh cool, that's a cool reference. That's fine. I like that. But then when it keeps going to that, they obviously really missed with the Venom one because people were just like, I don't know about Venom. Like the only real life thing we should have had was Donald Glover's Prowler, and Morbius should have shown up.
I was just at the same. We should have had a Jared Leto cameo.
It would have been so good. Just be
actually would have been
literally
pretty funny.
Him be like, it's Morbin time.
Yes.
Like in a cage, and just be like, there you go. That's the perfect.
Would have been pretty good.
That would have been pretty good.
Yeah, it's weird that Sony's like, considering how much they believed in that movie, they didn't put.
They've lost all faith.
Yeah, but they clearly think Venom's it's a big is a big part. The thing that really spoke to me. So there's a part in Spider-Man India where he's like, he says he loves chai tea, and he's like, chai tea. Do you know what you're saying? Chai means tea. And it's so good because I've literally had that conversation with someone before.
You're that guy, are you?
I didn't know that.
When I watched it, I was like,
I thought you were saying. I thought you were the guy getting up people about it.
Oh no! I was the guy. Some guys like chai. I'm like, yeah, chai tea is good. He's like,
naan means bread. It's not naan bread.
See, all these things.
ATM machine.
Like that one.
Everybody knows.
I was like, I'm going to use that at work.
The chai tea one though, I was like, this. I was pointing at the screen. I was like, that's me. This has happened. This movie is real.
That world was really cool, and that Peter Parker was really cool.
Mumbatan or whatever he called it. Here's where we have the traffic, and over here is where we have the traffic, and here is where we have the traffic.
What's that actor? Karan Soni, he's so good.
Yeah.
He's kind of got like a weenie little Indian voice, but he's really funny. The other movies, he's in like Deadpool, and he's in something else that I've seen.
He's the taxi driver in Deadpool.
Yeah, and he's pretty like sort of quiet and a bit more reserved, but in this he's like really energetic, and he's just really good for it. Like he fits it really well. Again, the voice acting, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say besides.
Did you guys the reveal of Miles getting sent into the wrong universe? Did that play for you guys? Did you see it coming a mile away?
miles away. That's good. Material.
42 miles away.
So my thing. Oh no, you go.
No, you go.
All right, okay. So again, sort of, I don't know, halfway through, because it's a long build up. It is a long sort of build up. And you pretty early on, you feel like something's a bit off. And I was talking to someone about this, and I think what works really well is that the animations again are different in it. Both universes have a different styling. It's not a huge difference, but there is enough to almost subconsciously, I think, be aware of it. Where you're looking at one and you're like, this feels a bit off compared to that, or like, even though you're never like, oh, that's clearly impressionistic 60s art versus this. It's like, no, they are two different styles. And I think that adds to sort of the awareness that there's something off. And I don't know, about halfway through, I was like, oh, okay, there's going to be a mix-up here. But I wasn't like from the beginning going, yep, that's it. But I think it was a good build-up. I thought it was a really good sort of reveal.
You didn't like it, Gunnar?
So they show like the computer as it's wrapping me up. Oh, Universe 42. It's like, well, that's the spider that bit him, which wasn't from his universe. So he's quite clearly going to the wrong place.
3 steps ahead.
And it's like, okay, well, this whole build-up is for something really obvious. But I mean, like, it was fine. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with where it went. I guess I feel like there's this big setup for nearly like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
for the sequel. It's not a climax of what we've got here. It's just setting up for this cliffhanger.
It's saved though by the conversation with his mum, like because it's all done. Like I was thinking about this straight after. I was like, it would be really bad if it was just like, where am I? And he's going through books and he's like, this is my stuff, but I didn't write this diary. But instead, it's just like it's a conversation with his mum, and that's really poignant because he's coming out to her about Spider-Man.
True. Yeah.
And so it's kind of like in the background around that is the sort of the mystery unfolding. And so I think that really saves it from being sort of tired or being lame, is that the whole time you're watching, you're like, yeah, this is a big deal for him. And then when it happens, it's like, sort of when it hits and she's like, who's that? And it's kind of like, oh, shit. And then all the pieces fall. And so even if you kind of recognize that, I guess, I would, to me, I'm like, it doesn't feel like a waste of time. It doesn't feel boring. Because
no, I did like him coming out to his mum. Like that was good. Yeah. The whole time I'm like, this is for nothing because this is not your mum. But anyway.
And then that's the thing. I like where it goes from there with introducing like the Prowler Miles as well. Like that scene in that room on the boxing bag, and just the other Miles' demeanor. It feels really dark again. Where I'm like, oh man, like this is messed up. Like this dude doesn't mess around. He wants to kill Miles. He's just like, I don't care who you are. Like you know, I'm going to take you out. And it feels really, I don't know, I feel sad for Miles. It's all alone in this universe until Gwen assembles the team.
I do love the it shows like New York's on fire everywhere. And it's like, oh yeah, this is what happened when Spider-Man's not there, and you take it for granted.
Shit place to live.
The Avengers aren't doing shit.
Yeah, so what's going on with the rest of them?
That's a good point. Only Spider-Man was warped, wasn't it? Yeah, what about everyone else?
Yeah.
All right, do we have
about New York?
Anything else we want to add to that one?
I really enjoyed the Spider-Man universe, all the different Spiders, and Scarlet Spider being all moody and being like recalling his depressing memories.
We didn't talk about the actual Nueva York, like where the central planet where they all are. Because that part's super cool. All the little Spider-Man nods are really fun. Like there's the therapist scene where it's like, I looked up, let me guess, he died.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
All of the stuff there's really. Again, we get the reveal. We need to talk about Mayday. She's the cutest little animated baby in the world. She's got the spider beanie. Holy crap.
Yeah. I love the connection between her and Hobie as well. And he's like, she's an anarchist. I like her. Like, like, shit, that's my daughter too.
Yeah.
Actually, I love that when Hobie just like bails out halfway through. He's like, I'm out. Like, I'm done.
I disagree with this. I'm out. Like,
he's just gone. But then the train chase. Speaking again about like kinetic energy, holy crap! Like you feel the million miles an hour, and they're just like Miguel's like flooring up the thing.
Oh man,
it is exciting. It is just like it's like when you're in those movies that are shot really high, you feel like you're getting vertigo because it's like holy crap, it's just too much. It's too much.
And man, Miles outsmarted him.
He did. He played
100,000 Spider-Man, and he played him like a damn fiddle.
The build up to that's pretty good too. It reminds me a bit of the escape from Oscorp in the first one, where there's just a bunch of little references, a bunch of little moments, a bunch of funny little things that you can catch. Like all these, like there's a dinosaur Spider-Man, and there's just so many random Spider-Man. It's fun.
Spider-Cat.
Yeah.
Did any of the other? Was there any? Do you think the Spider team was as memorable in this one? Because you've got Hobie, you've got I don't know, like the pregnant Spider Woman, you've got Gwen, Peter B, Miguel. Is there someone I'm missing?
The Indian Spider-Man.
Spider-Man India, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, do you compare the teams?
There's lots of fun characters there, and there's some good moments, but I think we don't really. It never feels like we get that true team up like we do in number one.
No.
Which
Even
I think is what they're leading up to for number 3, obviously.
And we get Spider-Man Noir back at the end.
Yeah.
And
and Penny in her new improved mech suit, and
yeah. So that's cool. I like obviously Peter B. Parker has a lot more involvement in the first film. In this one, he kind of felt a lot more subdued. But I think we'll get him back around in the third one. But I did like that he was very much like a new parent, just like wanting to show off. And it's like, oh yeah, no, I've heard this and I've said this 1,000 times, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
So,
great.
yeah, he is such a great character. Like that quote that I had as the father of a daughter and the son of a mother. It's just like, it's just, he means well, but he's just missing the point.
I really like the scene with him and Miles where he's like, I had a kid because of you.
Mm.
It's like,
Yeah.
meeting you and hanging out with you. Like, I was like, oh man, like I should give this another chance. And like, kids aren't just all assholes. Like, it was a really good
I was so
scene.
happy for him too. Like this fictional character, I was like so pleased for him. Like he got MJ back. He's got a family now. Like he's got his shit together.
Yeah,
I'm happy for him.
It's real nice.
Where do you think this goes in number 3? Do we get more Miguel? Is he done now, or is he?
Oh no, he's the villain.
You think he's the villain and it's not Spot?
Spot will be a villain, but Miguel will turn around and be a hero. But he's going to be the antagonist for a bit of the film.
So none of them know where Miles is, though, right? So
they're watching Gwen go into that portal at the end, like from the woman from the motorbike. She's like looking at the roof with Gwen on there, going away. I felt like.
Yeah, but I don't think they know that she's going to. Well, she doesn't even know that he's in 42.
She doesn't know where he is. No, like none of them know that. None of them know that universe specifically. They just know that he's not in his world.
Yeah,
so
true.
Do you think they just like skip? I feel like they can't just skip over that. Right? I feel like that's pretty pivotal. So I feel like Spot is the big villain. I feel like there's going to be like an interdimensional. They're going to be chasing him. He's going to be fighting Shadow Miles, and Spot's going to come in and like tear universes apart or something. Miguel's definitely got to play a big part though. He's
Does Shadow Miles come around?
Yeah, I think so.
Like he can't, or Spider-Man Miles gets Prowler's powers as well.
I think what happens is Prowler Miles kill Miles Morales, and then kills all the rest of the Spider-Man, and it just ends at a really depressing note of like.
Here's the thing. So touching on that, it might be too dark for these films, but did anybody else get like the wordplay or the vibe when Gwen Stacy saying in every other universe Gwen Stacy falls for Spider-Man? Because straight away, as soon as I heard that, I thought about Gwen Stacy falling in Amazing Spider-Man.
You think she might die?
Is that like a weird play? Or maybe like there's a possibility of it and he saves her or something like that. But I felt like, I don't know, the way it was worded, I just had this thought where I was just like, oh man, are they alluding to Gwen Stacy falling in the
I don't think they would. I don't think they'd be too scared to do it, but I think it would be the wrong choice.
That's a classic Gwen Stacy like comic book moment. So
it is, but that's kind of the problem. I don't think they would lean into that because they've spent 2 films building up that his father, like his family, is his big emotional point. Yeah. And even though Gwen is now made sort of like his, she's his love interest, and she's as much of a character as he is now. I think it'd be a weird betrayal to like kill her off for him. And
I hope they don't.
Yeah, because I feel like that would almost be a bit of like all the work they've done and be like, she's actually just his canon moment. Especially considering they've literally talked about people's canon moments, because that's what she would become, right? She'd be relegated to a moment moment of tragedy in his backstory. Whereas I feel like they're really big on having her as her own character. So I think it'd be a bad choice to do that. I think his dad's got to die. As sad as that is.
No, well, I think the whole point is that the canon moment is BS,
that's the whole thing is him avoiding that. Maybe they killed the mum. It's so dark.
Yeah, because he has already had a canon moment, hasn't he, with his uncle?
That's the thing where they showed
Spider-Man dying too, kind of, right? Like,
yeah.
I think the whole point is he's supposed to break that mold. He's supposed to break out of that cycle. But I don't know where they go. I suspect Miguel dies. Like maybe he turns around and sacrifices himself for the good.
Oh yeah, that would make sense.
Like, don't do anything to Peter V. Parker or Mayday, or I will. I don't know. I don't know if I'll be alright after that.
Oh, dude! They take out Peter B. Parker.
Oh man! Oh, that would be because he's already had a Spider-Man die though.
Yeah, he's Spider-Man.
This is not weird, but I guess this is where it gets a bit almost confusing. because he does have his canon moment in the first one when his uncle dies.
Hmm.
But this whole movie, the second movie is all like, your canon moment's coming, and it's your father.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, what does that mean? Like, how? I guess you can have two, but why? Why?
But is that the thing? Like, that's not the case anymore because his uncle died because he was Spider-Man. Like, that changed that thing, and maybe that was his
Yeah.
canon moment.
But that was kind of the whole. Yeah, that was the whole point. Right? It was like that. He was Spider-Man first, but he still had that moment of someone needing to die.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't avoid that, even though he became Spider-Man without having first that tragedy. So
Yeah. Don't know. I'm keen though. I'm very, very excited. I'm glad that it's only in March.
Yeah,
It's
I'm glad
not
we don't have
too
to wait
far
too long.
away.
I'll just wait until COVID 3.0 comes around.
Delayed again.
Yeah, 2028.
Yeah, I'm very keen to watch it. And I'm keen to go watch the second one again.
Where do you think this puts like Spider-Man in terms of Sony and the MCU? Do you think this becomes franchise to all hell? Do you think there is like Gwen Stacy TV series? Do you think there is spin-offs of this
Sony
animated
don't
one?
do TV series like that, do they?
Well, but they might, right? Like, I wouldn't put it because
Sony's out there for the money, right? Like
Spider-Man is their only profitable thing, as we've seen from all their other as we've seen from Morbius.
Yes.
The only thing that works is Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have it, like they are kind of in a bit of a, because they're not like they're not like Disney, they're not like a massive tech company or anything, they are just entertainment. And so I worry about a future where they're like, we need to just keep making this because that's our only thing.
Yeah, I think they do keep making it, but I think they lose. Who is it, Lord
Miller?
And Miller. Yeah, like I think.
Damn shame.
Oh, I know, but they need to move on, and I'm sure they're looking at.
They do
projects.
a lot of other stuff too. They did like Mitchells and Machines, and they do a lot of other stuff, which is another great movie. Yeah, I don't know. I could see a Gwen Stacy movie. Coming out of this, it made me want a Gwen Stacy game from like Insomniac. I was like, oh, that'd be cool. I'm sure maybe we could get that character.
Did you notice that his roommate was playing Spider-Man 2 on the PS5 that's not released yet? Like, so there's lots of fun little Easter eggs in all their little
the game Spider-Man was there in the universe as well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
which was cool. That's right. My son was very happy at that.
Really excited about that. Do you reckon the MCU takes any lessons from this? I mean, I don't really know what it would be, but
it's so hard.
Do you feel like they went the whole multiverse thing with Spider-Man based off Into the Spider-Verse's success? Like, went as hard into it as they went? Because obviously that's
I don't think so.
When was No Way Home? That was 2021.
3 years after Into the Spider-Verse.
I think that was a direct response to this. But I don't think that was. I feel like the multiverse stuff. Because when was Loki?
Loki was last year.
That was 2018
well. Is Avengers, like Endgame. So like, when you think of it, back then there wasn't much multiverse stuff at all.
And now everything's multiverse.
Yeah, everything's multiverse.
Yeah, I don't think they. I feel like they would have already had a plan for that eventually. Like, I feel like things like Secret Invasion and all that are pretty big comic book arcs. So I think they would have already had some of that stuff in mind. But I think No Way Home especially was like, I think that movie would have been like rewritten after this came out, and that's what we need.
That's what I'm meaning. I think the Spider-Man angle on it, where they're like, let's get Toby, let's do this. Let's like make the real Spider-Man multiverse.
Yeah, I think that movie's 100% was like based on the success of Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
I just, it's always that we've harped on about it ad nauseum, but this is how you sort of make these movies. This is how you make a multiverse superhero film.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I want Marvel I want all superhero films to kind of take lessons from this. But I don't know what they do if they will.
It's so funny to think that like I cannot think of anything Marvel in the next 2 years that I'm excited about. But Sony's Spider-Man and like this Spider-Verse, I'm so pumped for next March. So yeah, it's turned around.
Where do we rank them? For me, it's 1-2.
1-2. 1-2. But I did really enjoy the second one. But there's it's the middle chapter.
It's a great follow-up, but it does. It definitely feels like the middle chapter, and not in an Empire Strikes Back good way.
This film has a lot of Empire Strikes Back, though. Like, it has a lot of that energy of dark emotional stakes, and everyone's in a bad place, and it's like you can tell there's going to be the big resolution next. The first, Into the Spider-Verse feels like a more complete film. Like it's got that really nice, satisfying conclusion. But also, like that movie was such a sort of a revelation, like a breath of fresh air.
Yep.
And so that's not a criticism of Across, but it is like that. It wasn't as mind blowing as seeing. Like, we've seen Into. Whereas seeing Into for the first time was like, it's like I didn't know we could do this with films.
Yeah.
The animation in Across the Spider-Verse is better. Like,
the animation blew me away in Across the Spider-Verse. I was like, holy crap, this is so good.
So it's one of those cases, like technically it's probably a superior film with all the mechanics, but Into the Spider-Verse is a better movie. What up?
Great. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for The Good, the Bad, and the Worst. Next fortnight, I'm going to sing a little theme tune for you guys and just tell me if you know it. Do a Jurassic Park, boys. I love.
I didn't know what that was.
One of the Jurassic Park films. The other ones aren't as good, but it'll be fun, I think. Conan, you don't like Jurassic Park, do you?
I've never seen any Jurassic Park movies.
Ooh.
None of them.
Out of the 6 that exist, I've seen 0.
Well, we're only doing Jurassic Park, not Jurassic World. We're not doing the follow-up trilogy, but
I've seen the first Jurassic Park. Haven't seen the following 2, and then I've watched the first 2 Jurassic Worlds.
Have we talked about Spielberg? I feel like you guys know my Spielberg feelings, right?
True. Well, no, you don't like Spielberg.
Not the biggest fan.
Don't go on a spiel about Spielberg.
Jurassic Park is like my childhood, though. That was one of my favorite movies growing up.
It's like on the top 5 of my list of shame that I should have seen by now. So,
well, you're going to.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Glad to cross that one off for you.
Yeah.
This podcast was brought to you by A Taste of Iron by one Conan Clark. The Taste of Iron. It's a great book. Get it on Amazon. Contact us for a hard copy if you want one. Please rate us on iTunes, rate us on Spotify. Tell your mum and dad about us. Tell your friends. Give us a listen. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.